unlabeled switches, and then it sort of beeps back at me. That would be preferable to a monitor.
That's like the most hipster monitor you could possibly get. Yeah.
Sorry,
man. I'm not really into pixels. You guys know about that, but all right. Well, we got a bunch of stuff we're gonna get to. Let's jump right into it. Hello, everyone, tuning in to Close to the Metal. This is our weekly computing show where we go in depth with different topics associated with everything to do with computers. And today we're going to be talking about monitors. And the title of today's show, I believe it's a great season to buy a monitor, which sounds like a sales pitch for some really bad car commercial. But I'm going to say it is a good season to buy a monitor. So we've got a lot of things we're going to get through. We're going to talk about some different recommendations, some different styles, what you should buy, what you should maybe look at. We want to answer your questions. So if you have those and you're watching live, go ahead and hop there into YouTube and leave your comments. NCZ tutorials. There you go. There's your shout out right off the bat. But leave your questions, comments in there, and I'll make sure that we get through to those. I'm Greg Nibbler, your host, and with us today, as usual, to my right,
Brad Burke.
Mr. Brad Burke.
Matt Smith, and come on down to Matt Smith's Monitor Emporium. We've got the ultrawides, we've got the 1440p's.
We've got just the monitors for you. All right, guys, let's talk about this. We're gonna get into the monitors and talk about why we should buy these. But let's answer that question now, Matt. Why is now a great time to buy a monitor?
Well, because we've got stoking hot deals. And that's pretty much a lot of the reason why. Because, I mean, the holiday buying season, that's always going to be a good time to buy a lot of different things, lots of different sales.
Yeah.
But monitors in particular seem to be, going kind of nuts. I've noticed that a lot of the deals have been focused on monitors, a lot of the best deals. Mm-hmm. And I think that this comes down to a lot of there's been a lot of different monitor things that have kind of debuted over the last few years. Like 4K and ultrawides, IPS panels haven't debuted, but they become sort of the standard rather than kind of a high-end option. And so all that's kind of come down in prices as things do, year over year. And now we just have this really wide selection of all these different monitors that are nice and affordable. Whereas it used to be you had to pay 5 years ago you had to pay a pretty good price to get a nice monitor. That was something you had to spend quite a lot of money on.
But now the technology's caught up. There's a little bit more parity in the market, so there's a
lot
more.
You just have
lot
so
more
many
options.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. Well, that's a good reason, and I guess I'm assuming now around the holidays there is a lot of discounts that are going to be going on with monitors. So now is a good time to buy. But let's talk about jump in here and just start talking about what to buy. So I know you two wanted to go through kind of your recommendations. We do have a giant monitor sitting here that I'm sure nobody noticed if you're watching live. That's just conspicuously sitting here on our table. What are we looking at right here? Why is this monitor up here?
This is a Samsung CFG70. And it's actually not giant, although it may look that way on TV.
True.
It's a 24-inch monitor, and it's curved, and it's got quantum dots, which are great. Those are my favorite kind of dots. And it's 10. it's 1080p, and it's focused on gaming.
Okay.
And we reviewed this one very recently and found it had a really nice contrast ratio, nice color, very responsive. And this one's going to run you around $350, although you might be able to get a better deal on that right now at various websites. And that's a little high for a 1080p monitor, but this has some of the best contrast and color we've seen from a 1080p gaming monitor. So it's definitely kind of a high-end / basic option. So if you're want to stick with 1080p gaming because you don't want to have to buy an absurdly powerful video card, but you still want your games to look as nice as they can, this is a good option for you.
That's the way to go. Okay.
And it's also kind of a great example of what I was talking about with all these technologies that are coming down in price. This $350 monitor, it's curved. It's not an ultra wide, but it does have that curved screen, so it's a little more immersive. And I believe it says FreeSync, right, Brad?
I'm not sure. I think so.
And so you got some frame sync technology on it. You got the quantum dots, which can improve your color gamut, and that's something that you only saw on very expensive monitors for the most part up until this year. And it's still like a pretty rare technology to see. So
Yeah, how many monitors are going to have quantum dots? I mean, is that a general, like across the
We've
market?
seen 2.
Oh, really?
yeah,
Okay.
there's a Philips that has them, which it's not a
And
great
what
monitor.
exactly? Just a real quick explanation of quantum dot. What is?
So,
Never mind. Okay, we don't need to go into that.
Yeah, that
a lot of
actually-
dots.
So
We'll just go with a lot of dots.
Quantum dots. If you want to do a Google search for digital trends, quantum dots, you will
Yeah.
find Kayla Denison's extremely in-depth explainer about what they are. It is
Okay.
kind of a rough technology to sum up, but basically it gives you a higher color gamut
Okay.
than what's otherwise possible.
There we go. So it's something you can look out for when you're out shopping for a monitor. If you see something with quantum dots, the 1 or 2 that have them, that's definitely like an appealing quality for a monitor.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go to recommendations here. Let's talk about this. Like, if you had the money, if you were going to go out and buy a monitor today with your own money, what would you two buy, and why would you do it? Brad, do you want to go?
I would buy the LG 34UC98.
And Brad, in case anybody doesn't know, you are much into the gaming, so
Yes.
that would probably be a focus point for you.
It
when
is,
you buy
yeah,
your
it is
monitor.
definitely a factor. LG's 34-inch ultra wide. I'm a big fan of these screens ever since we started getting them in. 3440 by 1440 resolution. I think this one has like a 4 or 5 millisecond refresh rate, response time, and a 60 hertz refresh rate. 75 if you're using FreeSync, which is great. I also have an AMD card, so FreeSync is awesome, I think. And I've seen these as low as $550, $600.
Okay.
And I think for that price, it's a really good screen. And that sounds expensive. I know, like $600 for a monitor. But I, as someone who already has, a 1440p panel, a regular one, this would be a really nice upgrade. And especially these ultra wides for gaming are just awesome.
Yeah.
Playing games at 21:9 is a joy.
Well, I mean, at $550, $600, how long is that monitor going to last, though? Is the technology going to pass it up? Or
I think quite a while. I
Quite
mean,
a while?
it's a decent resolution. I think, I have trouble recommending a 1080p screen to people because, like you were saying, this is like a $300 monitor. For $300, you're at the starting end of a 1440p panel, and you really notice that resolution difference, especially at least in gaming. In productivity, too, you'll notice it, but I think more there you'll see really starkly that it's quite impressive. And I think most people are going to be satisfied with that, especially moving to 4K requires an upgrade in your video card area a lot of the time. And a lot of people, if they're already running on high-end 1080p settings or 1440p, will be able to make that move to 3440 without too much trouble.
Okay. All right. And that's, again, which one was this?
This is the LG 34UC98.
Okay. And that
That's
would
the
be
one
your,
with FreeSync.
Okay.
So.
And that would be your recommendation.
And to your point about how long it's going to last,
Yeah.
that is something that is great about why it's a good time to buy a monitor is because a lot of these monitors are mature in a lot of their technologies, but at the same time you're getting some really nice resolutions and some new ultra wide form factors, and monitors tend to be really reliable. So
Yeah.
you can buy one of these monitors and have it last you for probably longer than any other piece of hardware in your computer. But to get to my recommendation,
Yes.
I would go for the Dell P2715Q,
Okay.
which has been our favorite monitor for quite some time, our favorite 4K monitor. And it tends to run around $450.
All right. So a little bit less.
So it's really not very expensive for a 4K monitor, and it's a 27-incher. So, that's actually like a really affordable price for a 27-inch 4K monitor. That you're going to be spending not a whole lot more than you would spend for a lower resolution 27-inch monitor that's of good quality. And this monitor, besides having that awesome 4K resolution, it's got really great contrast and color accuracy in color gamut. It scores quite well in all those areas. It has a great stand and really good build quality. So it's very ergonomic. You can set it however you want to set it. You can tilt it sideways if you end up using it later on as kind of like a secondary monitor. It's one of those that's probably is going to last you for a really long time once you buy it.
And which one was this again, just to clarify?
It is the Dell P2715Q.
Okay.
Now, this is, in contrast to Brad's pick, Brad's pick is more of a gaming and media oriented monitor. This monitor doesn't have G-Sync or FreeSync. It doesn't. It's a fine reaction time, response time. You're not going to probably notice any problem in games, but it's not as fast as a gaming monitor.
So if you're specifically looking for gaming, this might not be the monitor for you.
It might not be. It's still going to look great, and it'll work fine. It'll work fine. It's just that with things like G-Sync and FreeSync and higher refresh rates and higher response times, some gamers have decided they want to go towards that. Mm-hmm. If, for example, you play a lot of Civilization 6, none of that stuff I just mentioned about response times really matters to you.
Yeah.
And what you probably will like is that this has a really good color gamut and great color accuracy, and your game is going to look awesome. So it kind of depends on what you want to do. But yeah, I think this is just a great monitor. It has been a great monitor since it came out. It won our Editor's Choice Award. And since it came out, the prices has been dropping. Let's see. So when this came out, it was $700.
How long ago was that?
That was the very end of 2014.
Okay.
And that was a really good price for a 4K monitor at the time. You know? And now it's, widely running for $450. And so, I mean, you really just can't beat that deal.
Yeah, $450 for a 4K monitor like that. That's going to last for, it'll last for a while.
Yeah, I mean, this is a Dell Ultra Sharp. This is their high-end monitor line. I have a 1080p Dell Ultra Sharp at home that I bought years ago, and I still love that monitor because it's a secondary monitor now, but it's really well built. It has a great stand. You can adjust it all kinds of different ways, so I can have it sitting vertically to the side of my main monitor as a secondary monitor. So.
All right. Well, so those are the recommendations of each of you if you were to go out and buy a monitor right now, which ones you would get. And again, we're broadcasting this live right now on YouTube, so we do want to hear your comments, questions, and we're going to go through some more in-depth analysis of maybe what you should look for when you're looking to buy a monitor. As we said, it's a good time of year to buy it. There's a lot of good deals out there, just the deals these guys just described. But, maybe you have specific things that you're looking for, and we kind of want to go through those and nail down what maybe people should be looking for when they're going out. So, talking about resolution, let's talk about gaming. Like, Brad, when somebody's going out to buy a monitor, if gaming is what they're really interested in doing, what kind of resolution should they be looking for?
Well, it's kind of interesting because I've been helping some friends work on PCs and building, holidays, building gaming PCs. And one of the things that's, you got to balance your video card and your performance with your resolution. Unlike if you're just working on productivity, you can buy that pre-built Dell and hook up that 4K monitor, and you're not playing games, so it's fine. The system's not going to struggle really to run that resolution. But if you're buying a high-end card, you want to buy a high-end monitor to go with it, and you sort of have to continually scale up. This is something that, balancing your build has to include your monitor resolution. The nice thing is, if you just want a 1080p screen, you can get, a $100 graphics card that runs your 1080p screen, and that's super great. And it's not that much either. A $200, we found even the RX 480 did pretty well at 1440p. Yeah. So you can step up over 1080p at the $200 price point and be fine. If you want to play at 4K, you're looking more at $400 to $600 for a graphics card plus $400 to $600 for your monitor. So I think it's just about, how much are you going to spend on your whole system, how much are you going to spend on your build versus on your monitor. But it is...
If you get a 4K monitor without the updated graphics card, it's just pointless.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially, and beyond resolution too, if you get a high refresh rate monitor and your system can't produce, 144 hertz while you're playing games that you like to play, then it won't matter that you've got that high refresh rate monitor. So you've got to really, take advantage of it. But, right now the nice thing is the GTX 1080 is a very capable card at 4K.
If you can find them,
If you can find them. They're more easily available now. We were looking at one this morning that's a 4-slot GTX 1080 that's a little ridiculous, so it takes up twice the amount of space that you would normally from a graphics card. Yeah. Absolutely massive. Those cards can actually clock it at 4K, so you kind of have options. There, and we even had a 4K 38-inch ultra wide, and our 980 Ti was really struggling to.
Oh yeah, that
keep
was
up.
not having it on that 38-inch ultra wide, but that was a 4K resolution.
Right.
I'll be a little bit more definitive and say for gaming, you should get a 1440p monitor.
Yeah.
and not worry about the rest too much. It's definitely true that, hey, if you can only spend like $100 on a video card, then maybe you'd be better at 1080p. But, like the 1440p is where you should be aiming right now. There's a lot of mid-range cards that can run at that resolution. It looks really nice. There's a wide availability of gaming monitors at 1440p. It'll last you a long time. So, yeah, 1440p is the way to go if you're looking for a gaming monitor.
Okay. 1440p. So there it is for the resolution for that. And again, we're taking your questions. If you're watching live, we want to hear your comments, questions. If you have any about monitors, if you're looking to buy a monitor and you have something specific, we'll get into that too. So we're talking about resolution right now and what you should look for. So there it is on gaming. Matt says 1440. And Brad, you're kind of saying it just depends on what your card is, what your graphics card is, as far as what you can do. What about just for general use? Just for somebody, just an ordinary person who maybe wants to do a little bit of gaming, maybe watch some Netflix on it, where you just watch, basic computing stuff. What should you look for in that?
This is where I would go 1080p.
Okay. And just of note, the sirens are in the background. We're in downtown Portland, so if they're not dubbed in. All right.
So probably a 24-inch monitor. 1080p monitor would be the way to go for that.
So you'd say go 1080 for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Two reasons. One, I'm going to assume if you play any games, but you're getting one for more general use, you don't have much of a graphics card, if any.
Yeah.
So, you're not going to be playing things at high resolution. Also, most video content is still 1080p. And so if you are just someone that likes to watch some movies or you want to watch some YouTube videos or something, a lot of the benefits of a higher resolution do end up being lost on you still, which is unfortunate, but that's kind of the way it goes right now. And 1080p is fine for all your other general use, especially on a 24-inch monitor. If you get a 27-inch monitor, it starts to look a little blocky, which may bug you, depending on how sensitive you are to that. It's sort of a personal call. I don't like it myself, so I generally go for a higher resolution on a 27-inch monitor. But, the flip side of that is you can get a really cheap 1080p 27-inch monitor.
Yeah, so if that little bit isn't going to bother you, if you're more general use, then it might not even be an issue. You can get one for a pretty big monitor for cheap.
And even, at that price, at a 1440p, if you're looking at a 1440p 27 or higher inch panel, you're looking at spending a little more like $300 or higher.
Yeah.
You could get two 1080p panels for less than that. Which
if you're for some people, if you're more productivity minded, that would be a really great option for you. Having those two monitors. So.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about then for resolution, which we're talking about right now. Let's talk about like high end photography and like video editing, which a lot of people are using their monitors for all of this, whether it's the second one or their main one. What do you think you should look for on that for resolution? All right.
I think that you should look at 4K.
4K? You think you should go for the 4K?
Possibly even 5K.
Oh,
that's what I was
okay. There we're getting it.
Because I know we have one of our video producers. He has a 5K iMac at home.
Yeah.
And you actually can have a 4K video playing with the extra stuff on the side, which is sort of a nice treat that you don't have to full screen to get a full size shot of what you're looking at if you're shooting and producing in 4K. So there are benefits to that.
What kind of 5K monitors are out there that are available?
There's a Dell.
Dell has one?
Dell has an
so 5K monitors, there is the Dell UP2715K, which we have reviewed a while back. And that was a very nice monitor. Love that monitor. And it was $2,500 at the time. It's now $1,600, which is still pretty pricey.
That's $900 of savings right there to go with our used car
but it's a little less. Mac users can use this LG Ultrafine 5K display, and this just came out at the latest Apple event, and apparently it's only supposed to work with Mac.
That's weird.
Which I don't believe.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't necessarily I haven't I'd like to look into that a little bit more and see how that's working, because I feel like it probably
Why would they make a Mac exclusive
works with
monitor?
Yeah, you'd have to go out of your way to make it not work with others. So,
Is it a video input thing though, that I think it's that it only has Thunderbolt inputs?
Well, yeah, but PCs have.
Right, but that it might be that they're doing some tricky Apple stuff to make
I
it
don't
so
know.
that it's only communicating
their
over
Apple
those.
hijinks.
Yeah. And there's also, I think there's a Philips 5K monitor,
Okay.
which
So if
we've
you're
not reviewed, but that would be like the less expensive option. But I also would not trust the quality as much on that.
But you're saying though, if somebody is into high-end photography and video editing and like that's what you do,
Yeah,
looking at a
4K or
5K, 4K or 5K.
So 4K, that can be reasonably affordable, just like that Dell I just mentioned. You know, that's a $450 monitor. So it depends on how like serious you are about that pixel count, because 4K and 5K, they don't sound like they're much different, but actually the pixel counts are pretty different. Like, you increase to 5K resolution, and that means you're increasing on both those, the vertical and the horizontal. So you're actually getting a much larger increase. I think it's something around like twice as many pixels, something along that nature. So yeah, it's a lot more pixel, a lot higher pixel density. But it's also a lot more expensive.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, yeah, I guess if you're willing to put in the several hundred more dollars, I mean, that's probably something that's going to last you a long time. If you get a 5K, you invest in that. But 4K, since most things now, you're going to be, that's probably the highest end you're going to be shooting and dealing with.
Be careful about what you're running off the video for that, because it was only the last couple years that Intel HD graphics got the ability to do 4K 60 hertz video output. So if you have an older system, you're not using a graphics card, then you might need to get a graphics card to handle the monitor.
That seems like a common theme with all of these monitors. With the whole discussion of monitors is be cognizant of what your graphics card is and whether you want to upgrade that as well.
Yeah, you really do have to be, just because there's been a lot of the, like I mentioned, there's been a lot of new standards over the last few years, a lot of new resolutions, new aspect ratios, stuff like that, and it's coming down in price now, and that's great. But the downside of that is there's been a lot of new resolutions and aspect ratios, and you have to kind of keep them in mind a little bit, because this stuff didn't exist, really a few years prior. So if you have an older desktop, and a lot of people do, because desktops last so long these days, it might not really support the new monitor without a graphics card. But fortunately, a graphics card upgrade is pretty inexpensive.
Okay. So yeah, and that's what you were talking about, the 1080s. Not that expensive if you really want to go high, or even just
that's the 1080
like a 480 or something.
Is like a $600 card. But if you're looking at the GTX 1050, is about $110.
Okay,
and that'll run.
Yeah,
that should have no
that'll
problems.
handle.
It won't game obviously at 4K. It won't be able to play games, but run the monitor.
What we're talking about here is like the ability to output video to a certain resolution.
Gotcha.
That's a lot different than playing a game at a certain frame rate at that resolution. So what we're talking about is like older desktops, just like they didn't have the ability at all to output at that resolution. If you hook it up to these old computers, it's going to show a lower resolution than what the monitor is capable of, because it can't handle it.
And even the new MacBooks, the MacBook Pros, the non-touch bar version with 2 ports only supports one 5K monitor out, like an external monitor, whereas this version supports 2 5K monitors at the same time. Yeah. So there's even newer systems do have issues when you reach 4K, 5K.
All right, so we're going to get into some more questions too about the monitors, talking about I think maybe move into the size of them and ultra wide versus the different sizes that you can get now. We do have a question in the live chat. Ismail asks, best 4K monitor for the price for the new 15-inch MacBook Pro. Any recommendations on that? I know you did kind of talk about one.
I probably would go for that Dell.
Or the Dell, okay.
You need an adapter, though.
Yeah, you need an adapter.
Which Dell was it?
The UP2715Q.
Okay. And you need an adapter for the Mac, but
you need to get a DisplayPort adapter.
Yeah, DisplayPort. Okay, but that would be your recommendation on there.
Yeah.
Okay, and if you have any other questions, please drop those in there, and we'll make sure that we get to those. Let's talk about size of monitor. Let's talk about that. There's a million different sizes you can go for. And Brad, I know you're a fan of the ultra wide, but we've got 24, 27, 28, 30, 32, whatever, pretty much whatever you want. It seems like there's something for somebody. Let's go into our thoughts about that. Brad, do you want to start first, or?
I do. The best size is 38 inches, as we saw with the last LG ultra wide we had.
Okay.
That was, I don't know, I was kind of smitten with that display. It's like, it's expensive, but the giant display is so cool.
But you have to have room for that, though, too.
Yeah, it's like literally, it's so big that you need to have a big desk to like have this monitor on there. And at the same time, it's worth it. I think. I don't know. Instead of if you're just in an ideal world, I'd buy a 38-inch monitor.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, in an ideal world, yeah, go as big as you can go, because like that 38-inch monitor is fantastic.
Yeah,
but
you have to have a system that's going to be worthy of that.
And that's why I'm saying an ideal world, and also of course it's expensive.
Yeah.
So another ideal world scenario is there are 32-inch 4K monitors, and those are very nice. Particularly, they tend to be popular with the professional photography, video editing, and productivity crowds.
Yeah.
Because again, this is something where, because you're increasing size, both in the vertical, in the vertical and the horizontal, when you go up from like 27 to 32 inches, like that doesn't sound like much of a jump. It's 5 inches, right? But that's measured diagonally. So actually, a 32-inch monitor is like quite a bit bigger than a 27-inch monitor. And I've used some 32-inch monitors for reviews, like just at my desk for my general workflow, and it's great. You can put like 4 windows, like one in each quarter, and have them both be usable size if you want to do some multitasking, or you can just have something be giant. But, most people aren't going to be able to do one of those two.
Yeah.
So I would say for general, I would go with 27-inch. That would probably be my recommendation.
As a general rule, 27-inch.
Yeah.
Something that you don't have to build a separate desk just to hold the monitor that you can.
Yeah, 27 inches is a pretty good size these days. It's big. Big enough that you'll probably feel impressed by it. But also, there's a pretty good range of affordable ones. So,
Come over and see my monitor. All right. It's a 27-inch.
I mean, this is 24-inch, right?
Yeah. This is the one that we have on the table here.
A 27-inch is quite a bit larger than this. And, yeah. Now, 24-inch, though, if you want something that's really affordable, or you want, good 1080p gaming, then that's usually the way to go.
Okay. 27-inch or 24?
If you want a really affordable monitor, or you want to do 1080p gaming affordably, then you want to go with a 24-inch monitor.
Okay, but if you're willing to step it up to a little bit higher, then go to the 27-inch.
Yeah.
And this one on the table that we have here is 24-inch. Okay, now Brad, you are an advocate of the ultra wide.
Yes.
Why are you such an advocate of this?
Well, my big thing is gaming.
Yeah.
And when you're playing games at 21:9 instead of 16:9, as long as the game supports it, which more and more games do, you can raise your field of view a lot wider. And because a lot of them have that curve, you can really one of the things, I play a lot of Overwatch, and you can literally see when people are coming. You get a better, you don't actually get a better field of view in Overwatch because they pull some tricks on it to make it not happen.
They do.
Which is unfortunate.
But you feel like you have
But
an
you
advantage.
feel like you do. I play a lot of Rocket League too, and that one is great for having that, just wider. You get to see more, and it's more immersive. And it's and especially like movies too. A lot of movies are in 21:9, and so it fills up your whole screen. Movies are really nice on those. And productivity, you can put 2 windows side by side, like he was saying, and it's not a problem.
I mean, if you go for the ultra wide and you've got a nice enough monitor, you can almost skip having a nice television and just go with that.
Yeah.
If you're somebody who's streaming or cut the cord or anything.
Ultrawides are actually really popular this holiday season. That's something we've seen a lot of the big deals, come down on. Like, there's been a lot of deals for ultra wide monitors that are like $280, $300, $350, and these will be $200 off the normal prices or more. So it's definitely a good thing to look at. I think I'll counterpoint Brad, though, and just talk about some of the downsides of ultra wides. There's just things you should be aware of.
All right.
If you're going to buy an ultra wide. First one, you want to buy something that's relatively large. I would say go with a 34-inch. At the least.
If you're going to do an ultra wide.
Yeah.
Okay.
And here's why. So these monitors are all measured diagonally, right? And the aspect ratio on the ultra wide is very wide. Has a very, very wide, but very narrow on the vertical axis. So I've seen, there's 25-inch ultra wides. There's also ones that are 29-inch. And when you get one of those, you're going to end up with a monitor that's very, short. It might surprise you how short it is.
Yeah.
A 30-inch ultra wide, for example, is not as tall as a 27-inch conventional monitor.
So it may throw you off if you're just
that
jumping
may
into ultra
it
wide.
may throw you off. It may be a problem. You may not like that if you're just doing normal things with your computer, like looking at a web page, because all of that width doesn't really help you when you're looking at a web page. If you just max out that web page, it's going to be, here's your 800 pixel web page in the middle, and wow, look at all that white space on either side of it. Doesn't really help you out. Another thing you need to be aware of with gaming, and you should check this out with your favorite games, is that the ultra-wide support's not guaranteed. Mm-hmm. There are a fair number of games that don't do so great with it. Overwatch has taken a lot of flack because they decided to do this field of view limitation. So it's not a competitive advantage because they want to be into esports and stuff. There are other games where it just won't work very well. I had a friend who recently got Fallout 4, and he's been using it on an ultra-wide monitor, and apparently he had some problems and had to get a mod to properly get that to work.
Wow, that's frustrating.
Yeah, it can be frustrating. Fortunately, you can find out whether or not your favorite games work fairly easily these days. If it's a fairly popular game, people are probably already online either complaining about it or praising it, but you should be aware of that.
My counterpoint to that is that if you want a really wide field of view in games otherwise, you need to do a multi-monitor setup, which is way more finicky than a single ultra-wide panel in most cases.
Yeah, well,
if you're trying to run Eyefinity or something.
Yeah, but I think that in a lot of, there will be games where it just won't work right. So,
So check out whatever your favorite game is first and make sure that it can handle it.
It's not, I think a lot of the more popular, high budget games, they tend to support it these days, but that there might be older games in your library that are never going to get an update with ultra wide support, and you might at times find that you are forced to kind of letterbox it and be a 16:9.
Especially if you play games if you're like a League of Legends or Dota player, one of those games, and that's your big thing. Don't get an ultra wide because that really is a competitive advantage.
Yeah, because competitive games are probably never going to embrace the ultra wide unless we come to a day where everyone has ultra wides, I guess.
Although I don't know, I think it's interesting that they do that, especially that Overwatch, they kind of cut off the top and bottom to make sure that your field of view is the same wide as everyone else's, and you just don't see as much up and down. But isn't then a 16:9 monitor sort of an advantage over a 3:2 monitor, or an older? Couldn't you continue to make the argument that one person is playing Overwatch on a 1x1 panel? So everyone's got to play at 6x480 because that's what the lowest.
You can make that argument, and use Overwatch and Blizzard's example again. I remember this was a thing when StarCraft 2 came out. People were noticing normally in a strategy game, when you change your resolution, that'll often give you a larger field of view over the map because it's displaying a certain resolution of a map, and if you have more resolution, you just see more. But people were they were playing StarCraft 2 on big monitors, and they were all my units are huge. What's going on? This seems weird. And it was because Blizzard didn't want people with higher resolution monitors to have an advantage by seeing more of the map. So, now that not everyone, but now that people generally have 24 or 27-inch monitors, it's not considered so much of an issue because it's kind of assumed people are using this level of equipment. But, I don't know if ultra-wides will become popular in that way or not. It's hard to say.
Okay. As far as a competitive advantage type of thing, if that's what you're looking for. I mean,
everything gives you a competitive advantage, right? A really nice keyboard with a quicker response time gives you a competitive advantage.
Sure.
Having a better internet connection gives you a competitive advantage.
Buying a PS4 Pro instead of a PS4, that'll give you a competitive advantage in some games. That's there were some articles.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, that playing Call of Duty on a 60 FPS system versus a 30 FPS system is a pretty big advantage.
Yeah, so better hardware will make you better at video games.
What?
That's why you should spend all your money on it.
Shocking. All right,
That's
well,
the moral of the story here.
spend more money. Well, all right, let's get our final comments here. And if you have any final questions, we'll get to those as we wrap this up, talking about what monitors to buy for the holiday season. The bottom line, I think, is it's a good time to buy, depending on what you're looking for. And we've kind of outlined a lot of different things to keep an eye on, depending on what you want to use monitors for. But final thoughts here. Brad, do you have any your closing comments?
I'm still a big fan of the ultrawides.
Ultrawides. That is
take it
the
to my grave.
Yeah. I think ultrawides are good too. I was an initial skeptic of them, I will say, and I've come around. The main point that I would just want to leave as a final comment is that consider your monitor fairly seriously if you care at all about computers, which if you're listening to this, you probably do.
Yeah.
Your monitor is going to spend more time with you than pretty much any other thing on your computer. It's going to last you a very long time, or at least it can if you buy, one that you like. So don't cheap out on it. That doesn't mean you have to buy a monitor that's $1,000, but that does mean I would encourage you to buy, like, say, the Dell P2715Q, which is $450 versus because I know you can find them. You can probably go to Fry's or some other place and find a 4K monitor that's like $300, and you're like, oh, that's a great deal. I want to get that. And it might be okay, but for a while, but then again, maybe, it has backlight bleed, or maybe the colors aren't so great, or maybe the menu really sucks and you hate adjusting settings every time you have to open up that menu. So it's generally worthwhile to put a little bit more money in it.
Yeah,
Because,
spend that 25% extra that you weren't planning on just so you have something better and longer lasting.
It's not like overall. A graphics card. Graphics card you're probably going to replace every 2 or 3 years, no matter what you buy. But a monitor, that's going to stick with you. So
I would also say, like other peripherals, it's good to get actual hands-on time, even if you buy on the internet, to like go look at a monitor and see if you like how it looks. Because you're, like I always tell people that with cases too. Like you're the one who has to look at it, so you've got to, like you're saying, you got to make sure it looks attractive and you don't mind the menus. And it's a lot of it is kind of going to be, oh, I like how that one looks.
Or barring that, read reviews from places like Digital Trends, which actually do testing of the monitor, because a lot of places don't do any actual like instrumented testing of the monitor of any kind, and just kind of look at it and say it looks nice or it doesn't. And unfortunately, your eyes aren't sensitive enough to actually be able to do that, particularly not when you're probably just looking at that monitor by itself.
Right.
So
and don't trust what they say about the monitors either, because you'll see a lot of things they'll say, oh, it's got a 1,000,000 to 1 contrast ratio and all this stuff, and there are a lot of ways to sort of blow up those measurements to make them look like, or people saying we have 110% of, a color gamut, which is not possible.
Right, that doesn't make any sense.
So,
and all those reviews are at digitaltrends.com. That's where you can go and find
that is where you can
in-depth
find
reviews. So whatever one you're thinking about, whatever you're looking for, go there. I think that's probably about it for today. So this is our show, Close to the Metal. We do this every week, every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, live on YouTube and at digitaltrends.com. And then it's up as an audio podcast as well after that. So make sure and subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts from. Subscribe there. Send us your questions, podcast@digitaltrends.com. Or if you have a show idea, maybe you have something you'd like us to go in depth with for a half hour, send us that idea, and maybe we can make a show about that too. So, all right, thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. It is great to have you here. We'll be back next week with another episode.